So we have just started chapter 17 of the second part, or part 2 of this book, that deals with development of mediumship. What is important for us to recall from the last meeting is that one, indeed, mediumship can and should be developed, predisposed that you have, that one have the seeds of it, that you have the natural organic disposition, that you had conquer this opportunity as a necessity or as a mission in many different ways. To have the natural talent does not suffice. If someone has a natural talent to play the piano, but does not sit and do the scales and do the practicing and the hand exercise and everything that is required to become good at it, it's going to be a waste of a natural aptitude. Same thing with mediumship, same thing with anything in life. Requires hard work, can and should be developed, can and should be educated. Again, provided that you have at least the seeds of it. Okay, so we are born mediums. And again, talking about ostensive mediums, not the average mediums that we all are, but ostensive mediums who has a much greater window open to the spiritual world, are able to interact in a much, much higher level with this kind of spirit than the general population. Okay, it's very important. And there is no diagnostic tools to see who is that ostensive medium or not. There is no way that we can see somebody walking around and say, oh, there, I see the third eye is on the forehead of that person is a medium. The only way to figure out if we are mediums, ostensive mediums or not, is to put it through a trial. And with a specific talk primarily of writing, psychography. Okay, that's one that is most common, most useful, perhaps most important, and the one that can easily put to trial. As I suggest over here, that you have to do is place yourself in a state of concentration, meditation. Naturally suggest to make a prayer. Naturally suggest to be in the proper environment, surrounded by the proper people. Suggest not to be trying those things at home by yourself. And with a piece of paper, a pen or a pencil, lightly touching the paper, and allow thoughts to come in and write those thoughts. If after writing it, you read what was left in the piece of paper, and you can conclude that those thoughts were not really yours, there's a good chance that you are a medium of psychography. That was we read last time, and one item, and basically now we can start on 2 or 1.
Okay. As for the physical conditions, we recommend avoiding anything that might impede the free movement of the hand. It is preferable that it not entirely rest upon the paper. The point of the pencil should maintain enough contact to write, but not so much as to offer any resistance. All these precautions are of no import, however, when the medium begins to write fluently, for then no obstacle at all can deter the hand. They are only preliminaries for the beginner.
Okay, so this is pretty much mechanical, very obvious recommendations of Kardec, right? especially for the juniors, so to say, mediums, one of those starting now. You want to make sure that you have, they are sitting proper on a table, that you are comfortable in that position that you are, that there is nothing that impedes your hand to move, nothing around. Don't put your bottle of soda right next to it. You may throw your bottle away. Don't, anything that restricts the movement of the hand should be avoided. Just plain common sense. And again, lightly touching the paper, not too firm. You're gonna break the pencil. You're gonna tear the paper, right? Lightly gentle. Allow yourself to place yourself in a state of concentration, of meditation, and basically see what happens. Naturally, this is primarily for beginners who perhaps has less control of his or her mediumship abilities. A more experienced medium will perhaps get away with something else at the table. You'll be more comfortable receiving someone else's thoughts and writing it on a much easier way. But for the beginners, it's just plain common sense. Make sure that your hands can move freely. Make sure that whatever you're using is not so firm that will tear the paper or that will break the pencil and stuff like that. Okay?
Okay. Tool.
Yes.
It does not matter whether a pen or pencil is used. Some mediums prefer a pen, but it will only work for those who are fully developed and who write calmly. There are mediums who write so quickly that using a pen would be nearly impossible, or at least very inconvenient. The same applies when the writing is jerky or irregular, or when dealing with violent spirits who tap the point and break it, tearing the paper.
Okay, again, just pure common sense. The spirits are not very picky. If you use a pen, if you use a crayon, if you use whatever you use, they want to express their thoughts. Whatever medium in this case, pen, pencil, crayon, Crayola, whatever you choose. But common sense will suggest that use something that you are comfortable with. Whatever you use, make sure that it's not very abrasive, not to destroy the object itself, pen or paper or pencil, or you tear the paper they're trying to write on. Are there cases in which an angry spirit may cause destruction to the object you're using? It is possible. Perhaps even a more educated spirit more educated medium may experience such an angry, disturbed spirit that it will destroy the instruments they're using, being pen, pencil, paper, and everything else. But a more experienced medium may be able to control it and prevent it to happen. We may continue. I think this is also self-explanatory.
We just have to remember that this was written when the only pen available was the I don't know, the Quill. I don't know how it's called, the old pen, right? So that also may influences what Kardec writes here.
That's a very important point. Yes.
Yeah, but even with the pens today, right? Renato can tell us, right, of experience of the ink, finishing the ink or the pen failing. So the pencil, a regular number 2 pencil is probably the best instrument to write, right, Renato?
Yeah, my experience with pen wasn't that great. So now I use like 4 different pencils. So if it breaks or if it shortens too much, I already have like backup pencils to writing, and and a notebook with paper that is not like too thin, so it don't avoid any problems.
Yeah, these are very good suggestions. Yeah, the quality of paper may have something to do also. A better quality paper that is not so easy to tear would be helpful as well. Okay, 203.
203. 203. Is that up?
All right, got distracted.
Okay. 203. The desire of all aspirants to mediumship is, of course, to be able to converse with the spirits of loved ones. But any impatience must be moderated because communication with a particular spirit nearly always presents physical difficulties that render doing so impossible for the novice. In order for a spirit to be able to communicate, there must be between it and the medium certain fluidic combinations, which are not always immediately established, only to the degree that his or her mediumship develops well. The medium, little by little, acquire the aptitude needed to communicate with the first spirit who presents itself at the time. However, it could also be that the longed for the spirit is not a favorable condition to communicate in spite of actually being present, or that it is neither able nor permitted to respond to the evocation. Thus, it is best if in the beginning the medium refrains from evoking a particular spirit to the exclusion of any other, since fluidic relations often cannot be very easily established between the two, no matter how much affinity there may be. Consequently, before thinking about receiving communications from this or that spirit, it is first necessary to develop the faculty by making a generalized evocation, and especially by addressing one's guardian angel.
Thanks. I remember when I started in blood bank, after a few weeks of doing the test and exercise, I went to my supervisor and asked if I could do my own phenotype, which basically do the testing on my own blood and see all the phenotyping in my cells, right? And I remember she said, "Oh, now you have to become a blood banker," because everyone has that. When you start studying and you start to understand, you have this natural desire to know your own phenotyping. And I say that because I think it would be extremely likely the same situation for mediums who are able to interact with the spiritual world, to interact with this incarnate spirit, to have that natural desire to interact with loved ones who are now in the spiritual world. Relatives, friends, grandma, that was so nice to me while I was here. Now that I'm a medium and grandma's over there, we can again talk. It'll be nice. I think it's a very natural desire. Well, certainly I would have it before it's further stance of mediumship. But the point of Kardec is extremely important. That one must be very patient to educate its own mediumship first before it started to choose and pick who they're going to interact with in the spiritual world. To begin with, there is a natural fluidic compatibility, even organic, that will make easier or harder for spirits to interact with some certain mediums. And Kardec leaves clearly over here that in the beginning, you may only be able to interact with those that we have this fluidic affinity already, that you have that general organic disposition that allows the communication to happen easier. With experience, with tremendous amount of work, you may be able to lesser that limitation. But in the beginning, that's so that you might be able to interact with those who are, it's almost natural, easy for it to take place. Right? It's like when we start riding your bike, you may only be able to ride it straight forward, not even curve yet. As you develop yourself, it's the same bike, it's yourself, maybe able to do a lot of more things. Maybe you take your hands off, or maybe able to do acrobatics and whatever, because you develop the skills. So the same thing with the mediumship, you need to develop the skills. And perhaps in the beginning, you may not have the ability to overcome the fluidic, the organic disposition to interact with others that requires a more complex interaction of those two perispirits. Another thing to keep in mind, extremely important, is we love our loved ones. That's why I call them the loved ones. We have our prejudice towards our loved ones. You may think that they are perfect, they are great, they may be in the spiritual world, playing harps on a cloud, and they just a phone call away to interact with you. But it just may be that may not be the case. That they may not be in condition, in a good situation to come and interact with us for many reasons. We always jump on the negative ones. Oh, it's probably suffering in the lowest of the lower zone. It may not be the case. It may be such an evolved spirit that is now living in another world outside of the earth sphere, so to say, and it becomes very hard for that spirit to come in and communicate with us. Many possibilities. But point is, that person that you love so much may not be able to come and interact with you. You have to accept that. And it may be for all the possible reasons. So the good ones or the bad ones. Yeah, maybe he's in, suffering consequences of his action in the lower zone, or maybe he is such elevated spirit that's becoming compatible to us because his perispirit is now so spiritualized that makes it very difficult to interact with us or have such a dense perispirit yet. Many, many possibilities. So Kardec makes a very important suggestion that at least the beginning, be open, be receptive to those who come to our way. Avoid the evocations. We don't do much evocation these days, as used to be done at the time of Kardec. But I'm sure there are places that is to evoke spirits. And if you're going to evoke or ask something specifically, go to a reliable, safe source. Ask your guardian angel, protecting guiding spirit. Can you help me put some words on this piece of paper here if I do have the ability of write as a medium? Can you give me my hand over here, show me that if I can, if I can't, and try, but at least it's a reliable, something that you can trust. You're protecting guiding spirit. Comments? Okay, you may proceed.
Okay.
A comment.
Sure.
It's interesting. I never thought about evoking loved ones. I don't know why I always thought that.
I don't know why.
I think they got better things to do, or maybe I was just so focused in trying to do the best I can, and and trust the process. And I remember now a few members of our group had the opportunity to be blessed to receive a message or communication in general from the loved ones. And I think when you are not asking or thinking, you're just doing your part. When you do receive it, it's, I think, the feeling of joy and and happiness when it happens. I think it's so fulfilling because you understand that the time was right. It was not something that you were trying to force it or whatever, because they know when is the best time. And I think, like you always say, if you're doing your job, they know what they're doing. And but I thought interesting when you mentioned that if you had this extensive mediumship, it would be natural to try to communicate with them, because I never thought about that. I was just so into it that I didn't think about that to the opportunity of doing that. It's just let's do the work and letting everything else work out.
Yeah, I think there's a few things here. One, can take a little tap in the back of SGNY is that you know, and I would say that with great amount of pride, is that the training and of mediumship is proper, is in accordance with the teachings of Kardec, and I think that minimizes that desire, because that's exactly what we're reading over here. So I think the proper training to exercise mediumship the proper way is fundamental, as we always say, and that contributes to lesser those desires, those things that perhaps could be counterproductive. And yet, I think it is a natural desire. And Kardec puts over here, all aspirants of mediumship is, of course, to be able to converse with the spirits of loved ones. And those in our group who received message from loved ones, they receive it without a vocation, without asking for it. They receive it from other mediums other than themselves. And as you said, if it is to happen, it will happen in the proper environment. The vocation is almost unnecessary. You will come in if it is for the benefit, especially of us, the incarnate ones. So to make the vocation becomes almost meaningless now that you understand it better. But remember that this is the very beginning of spiritism. That's the very beginning of mediumship meetings. And this message over here is for the people of the 1850s. After studying these books, we have all this bibliography available for us. We are better prepared to deal with our mediumship and have less of those natural desires.
You said something. So usually a message from loved one comes through a different medium than the recipient.
What I said is that is my understanding that in our group, the messages received from the incarnate ones come from different mediums other than the target, other than the person itself. What I mean is, it's not that medium was evoking to receive a message for his loved one, but it happened naturally through another medium.
And when it happens with the same medium.
It could. But it did not happen in our mediumship meetings as much as I remember.
In these 20 years or so, I received a couple of messages from her mother,
Oh, there you go.
but she didn't read it in public because it was personal. But talk about 20 years, 2 messages. So
Wow.
You remember I received one. It was
Oh,
very
yeah.
emotional. It was very
Yeah.
hard to even to translate because it was a mix of the message and the images all at once. It was very, very emotional. Let's simplify. It was very, very emotional. That's why I asked, because
Yeah, that's true. You receive it.
yeah, I didn't think it was possible to not possible. Everything is possible. I didn't think because usually, as the way it happens is like Yama was saying, a different medium receives it and transmits to the recipient. But in that case, I psychographic from my loved one. So yeah.
Yeah, so as I say, it can happen both ways. You approve of it, but it seems, from what you have said, and makes complete sense, that it's perhaps even easier, less emotionally difficult for a third party to receive a message for a loved one and pass to the other person than that person, him or herself, deal with all the emotions and still psychograph. Yeah, it's like the surgeon operating on his own child or her own child. No, it's easier if another surgeon does it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, continue.
Okay. There are no sacramental formulas. Whoever claims to recite a formula that draws spirits may be firmly branded as an impostor, since formulas mean nothing to spirits. Nevertheless, their vocation must always be made in God's name. We may begin a vocation of a spirit by using the following phrases of similar ones. I pray that Almighty God will allow a good spirit to communicate with me by causing me to write. I also pray to my guardian angel to assist me and protect me from evil spirits. Then we wait for a spirit to manifest itself by causing us to write something. It could be that the spirit whom we have hoped for will in fact manifest itself, or it could be an unknown one or even our guardian angel. In any case, it will usually identify itself by writing its name. This brings up the problem of identity, a problem that requires much experience to deal with because there are few novices who are not exposed to the possibility of being fooled. We shall soon address this issue in a special chapter. When we want to call certain spirits, it is essential that we first address those whom we know to be good and attuned to us, and who might have a reason to answer, such as relatives and friends. Thus, we must make an invocation along these lines. In the name of Almighty God, I pray that the spirit of will communicate with me. Or I pray to Almighty God to allow the spirit of to communicate with me, or other words to that effect. Also, the first questions must be formulated in a way that the answers may be given as simple yes or no. For example, are you here? Do you wish to answer? Can you make me write, etc. Later on, this precaution will be unnecessary. In the beginning, however, it is a It is a means of establishing a relationship. The essential thing is that the question not be useless, that it not refer to private matters, and especially that it express a benevolent and sympathetic sentiment toward the spirit to whom it is addressed.
Okay. So primarily on this passage over here, Kardec is talking mostly about evocations. There are no sacramental formulas.
Mm.
This applies primarily to bringing to your side a particular specific spirit, loved one or otherwise. Because you already addressed there is no sacramental formulas to have the mediumship of psychography. That was pre-established already. So now here is there is no sacramental formula to psychograph the thoughts of a specific spirit that you are evoking. And anyone who claims to have it is an imposter. And again, we are dealing with mediumship in accordance to spiritism. Okay. Is it possible that someone from a different spiritualist movement will say contrary to this, to say that, oh, we can make it happen. We can call the spirit that you want and they will communicate to us. Well, we are not going to argue, okay? As much as we understand spirits have the free will, they are living beings, they are not little puppets at our hands. So we don't think that we can somewhat demand or attract the spirits at their own will. They have their own will to begin with. Now, if we do exercise mediumship through evocations, that may be a good reason to do so. I find it hard to find one. But if you do have, if you practice, let's say, in our center, the idea of evoking spirits calling A or B or C, then you should start a prayer. And in this prayer, or this invitation that Kardec suggests, first of all, it's quite simple, not ritualistic at all. There is no rituals, there is no magical words, there is no crystal, there is no smoking things, there is no, you don't need cigars and cachaça or anything, right? It's just words. It's just the energy associated to those words, not even the words itself, but energies associated to those words, right? And then that expresses one humility. It expresses the understanding that you are powerless in the situation, but you're asking if it's possible. Direct to the spirit, or you ask God, Almighty says here, to provide this opportunity that you may allow that spirit to communicate, or that make it possible for that spirit to communicate. Okay, which shows here humility, simplicity, and that you kind of understand that indeed the telephone rings from there to here. So we ask and you hope for the best, primarily, right? Yeah, I think that's primarily over here. There is like the issue of attunement, being attuned or being in synchrony with us. Well, let's assume that we have a organized group that exercise mediumship with elevated thoughts, with the desire of being helpful or to receive help for those from more enlightened spirits, you are likely to vibrate at a higher level and be attuned with spirits at the same level of vibration. If we have kind of mediumship meetings in which we want to figure out how we can make Mary fall in love with John because that's what we want to happen, or how Peter can get the job that he wants but does not really qualify for it, and what can the spirits do to have Peter to get that job that is not the best qualified. Naturally, we will be in tune, we'll be in synchrony of a spirit of the same order. And we may create that level of vibration on us that later on, when I perhaps could have my loved one to associate with me, it becomes impossible because I'm already surrounded by this kind of energies. So one must be careful, one must be aware of the potentials that the mediumship can open to one, but to the traps along the way that you must be very, very careful with. And that's why in spirituals, we say mediumship with Jesus. Okay, comments?
Yeah, so in the case that we say the spirits are brought to the prayers of the loved ones in order to talk and to be assisted or whatever the reason is, isn't that a kind of evocation?
Yes, from their part, not from ours. Yes, absolutely right. I mean, if let's say my grandpa is having difficulty in the spiritual world, not understand that he is discarnate, or he's seeking revenge for something, and there is my grandma, there is my father, there is his father, and a bunch of spirits with a merit, naturally, work and praying to try to help my grandpa, and they may receive the assistance to the merit. You know, if they have the bonus hours, is that the name again? Bonus hours, right? And they go to a leader, you know, on the spiritual world of a spiritual center, say, yeah, can we try to bring my grandpa that who is suffering the spiritual world? Can we bring him for communication here to help them? And they say, yeah, there is a chance that we can do that, and they bring it in. Yeah, they make the vocation on their side, but not we, the workers in that meeting. We have no idea who's gonna come and why they're gonna come. Once they come in, we do our best to assist. You understand the difference?
Understand? I was trying. I was for some reason generalizing evocation, but what we are talking about here is the evocation from our side.
Yeah,
because
we're talking about the vocation from our side, yes.
Okay, because there is the assistance through evocation, as you just explained. There's the rescue. There's the different things that spirits receive treatment, and evocation is just one of them from their side, not from our side. Got it?
Yeah, and also maybe let's say a group of medium musicians want to evoke Beethoven, and they get together, they concentrate, and they say if the spirits of Beethoven and do all the prayer is able to help us and come and assist us, or God help that the spirit of Mozart may be able, of Beethoven may be able to come here and have a communication with us. It may happen, it may not happen. it's really, there is many situations that allow it to happen, that allow it not to happen as well. To begin with, Beethoven has free will and may choose not to do so. Beethoven may not be able to do it, or we do not merit the presence of Beethoven in our group. Many situations. That is our evocation. We got together, a bunch of mediums, well, spiritists, and we would like to invite Beethoven to come and communicate with us. Nothing wrong with trying. But then it comes to the serious problem that that we read before, the question of identity, right? Spirits may sign their name below the messages, no, but is that the one? You call Beethoven? Beethoven make a meaning, say I'm Beethoven, but is it really Beethoven? You know, as André Luiz once responded to Chico Xavier, there are many André Luiz out there. It's up to us to do the exercise to identify, to be able to trust that the message really came from André Luiz, or if it was really Beethoven who came in and have the conversation with us.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
Please.
Okay. 204. A more important guideline to observe than the manner of making the appeal is calmness, a meditation combined with an ardent desire and firm will to succeed. By will, we do not mean an ephemeral and inconsistent desire, allowing ourselves at any moment to be interrupted by other matters, but a serious and persevering determination sustained with firmness and without impatience or anxiousness. Meditation is aided by solicitude, silence, and the avoidance of anything that could cause a distraction. Thus, there is nothing more to expect this. Renew the attempt every day for 10 or 15 minutes at the most each time for 15 days, a month, 2 months, more if needed. We know of mediums who only began to display their abilities after 6 months of practice, whereas others began to write correctly from the start.
So, in other words, persistent with reasoning, right? Now I'm going to concentrate to receive a message from the spirits. But in my mind it says, oh, what is the score of the Yankees game? Oh, I'm really hungry. Can I eat something and come back, continue my meditation later? How are you creating the window of opportunity for anything to really happen? So concentration meditation is extremely important. Solitude, silence, or if you're not silence, something that stimulates concentration, that stimulates meditations. In our meditation preparation for the passes, I always stress that if it's very hard for us to empty our mind of thoughts, not impossible, very hard for us Westerners, not trained, have not trained our mind properly. So let's have a focus of attention that helps us to not deviate our mind. The image of Christ, the image of whatever you want to image of, something good, something associated with goodness that will allow us to really zero in what we intend to conquer. The same thing with beginners of psychography. You have to concentrate. You have to devote yourself for that period of time, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but it has to be completely focused. So you can expand your perispirit to receive or to perceive the approximation of another perispirit, and then receive the thoughts of that other perispirit and write it. It's complex. It requires meditation. If it didn't succeed today, you may try tomorrow. You may try the next day. You may try for 15 days. You may try for a month, 2 months. Kardec says over here, someone only conquered that 6 months later. Then the question becomes, when enough is enough? When would I be convinced that I better off try something else? I better off try to do just the vibration to help because I don't have it. Come to a point that we will say, well, anything that enough is enough is somewhat personal. Again, I would use reasonable. We need to be reasonable. Okay, or perhaps we can even count with the assistance of a more experienced medium, or even of a spiritual guide of the house who will say, yeah, Yamo, that's not for you. Can you start trying now? May happen. Okay, but you're not gonna, if for some people it comes so easily, for most of us, we will have to learn to meditate, to learn to place ourselves in that outer state of mind. There are this mediumistic state that allows the things to happen. And it won't happen with practice, with trial. But then again, I would ask, when enough is enough? Is 6 months enough? Is 2 months enough? Likely it's personal. I don't have an answer, basically, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we had someone that started only after 2 years, right?
Mm.
And yeah, and we had mediums that start purely with cacophony and eventually start to write as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
where are we now?
205.
Yes, please.
Okay. In order to avoid futile attempts, one could question a serious and high-order spirit through another medium. However, it is worthwhile to remember that when we propose a question to spirits to find out whether or not we possess mediumship, they almost always answer in the affirmative, which nevertheless does not mean that there will not be many unfruitful attempts. This may easily be explained. If a generalized question is posed to a spirit, it will respond in a generalized manner. We know that nothing is more flexible than the faculty of mediumship, but it may appear under the most varied forms and to the most diverse degrees. Thus, one may be a medium without realizing it, or in a different sense than one would expect. To the vague question, am I a medium? The spirit will respond yes. To the more precise question, am I a writing medium? It might respond no. One must also take the nature of the spirit being questioned into account. There are spirits who are so frivolous and so ignorant that they respond at random, like true half-hair brains. That is why we advise addressing enlightened spirits who usually willingly respond to one's questions and point out the best course to follow if there is to be a possibility of success.
Thanks. Okay, so as I said before, we could try to shorten our trials and ask the mentor of the house or through another medium if you have that ability. Being careful to one, I go to the end over here first. Be careful who you are asking, who is providing that answer. How reliable is that person? How trustworthy is that spirit? Again, in a proper environment, you know, practicing mediumship with Jesus, you'll be somewhat comfortable and ask spirits to provide answers, even if the person had a personal type of answers, because you trust the quality of work being done, and you think that you not receive his answer from the spirit who's trying to pull your leg, so to say. But in different situations, you have to be very careful. Who is giving you those answers? You know, it's like going on Google today and put a question over there. I'm sure if you type and put any question in Google today and hit enter, you'll be getting a bunch of answers from different people, different institutions, different everything. Which one's reliable? Which one can you trust? That is an exercise that you have to do and select what is reliable, what's good, and what's not. So to begin with, who are you asking for? And then can you trust, right? Now, if you deal with more evolved spirits, as I have said over here, many times and Kardec reaffirms that here, the more evolved spirits are extremely objective and extremely frugal with words. They do not waste their time nor ours. Again, the question that I always say is, and they'll ask, can humans swim? What is the answer? The answer is yes. Human can swim. Can every human swim? That's a different question. You get a different answer. No, not all humans can swim. Can dogs swim? Yes. Can every dog swim? Yes. They may not like the water, but if they have swim, they will. Right? So it depends who you asking and how you ask. Because if I ask a spirit, am I a medium? A more evolved spirit, frugal towards an extreme objective, say yes. Because Kardec has already told us that we are all mediums. So it's a silly question, it shows that I don't understand anything of mediumship. And the answer is absolutely truthful. Yes, am I a medium? Now, am I a medium of psychography? That's a different question. And you receive a different answer. No, you do not have the ability of psychography. Oh, yes. And then I say, how come they didn't start yet? So, because you're lazy. You know, very straightforward, objective. So you can bypass the 6 months of trial, and if you trust the spirit and is a reliable spirit and make the right question, you may get the right answer. Should we continue? What time is it?
We have 5 minutes. 4
5?
minutes. 4.
Yeah, you can read one more then.
Okay. 206. An approach that almost always yields good results in the use of a good, flexible, and already developed medium as a temporary aid. If this medium places his or her hands or fingers upon the hand that is to do the writing, it is rare that it will not begin to move immediately. We may easily understand what occurs in such an instance. The hand holding the pencil becomes a kind of appendage of the medium's own hand, much like a basket or a planchette. However, this does not mean the exercise is not very useful when employed, because if it is repeated frequently and regularly, it will help to overcome any physical obstacles and enable the faculty to develop. It is also sometimes sufficient to intently magnetize the arm and hand of the one who desires to write. Often, all the magnetizer has to do is place his or her hand on the person's shoulder. We have seen individuals immediately begin to write under such influence. The same effect may be obtained without any contact whatsoever and by a simple effort of the will. It is easy to understand that the confidence of the magnetizer in his or her ability to produce such a result must play a large role, and that an incredulous magnetizer will exert a weak influence or none at all. The help of experienced guides is also sometimes very useful to point out a number of small precautions that novices usually neglect to determine of the speed of which they progress. It is especially useful for these guides to inform novices as to the nature of their first questions and the way in which they should be asked. Their role is that of a teacher who is no longer needed when the student becomes sufficiently skillful.
Okay, so there's three scenarios over here, and I must confess that the second one is very nebulous to me. And the first one, a means of initiate the confidence, the ability of a medium of psychography to start using her own hand or allow spirits to use their hands would be one by laying their own hand on the top of a more experienced medium. Feel that process going on and gain the ability of doing by basically laying their hands on the top of a more experienced medium. Another way is the second one that to me is quite nebulous, and the reason is because to me it seems to be more of a physical phenomena than a true intellect phenomenon or true psychography. When a magnetizer will gives this his her energy to magnetize the hand of the medium of psychography, so it could easily perform a psychography. So to me, the way I see this, there's at least two phenomena going on here. One, the physical phenomena of the magnetizer use his or her own energy to kind of prepare that hand so the spirits could use that hand to write. Okay. To me, this is I'll have to expand more time reading this one because to me there is more of the psychography, or perhaps there's not even psychography. But it's here. Kardec wrote it. I have to say that it is psychography. Okay, although in my mind I have some questions. And the last one, of course, is to count with the assistance of spirits who will help us, who have well trained, perhaps specialized in this kind of work. As you see Erastus in this book, devoting himself to mediumship, perhaps a well-prepared mediumship spiritist group will have this kind of mentor that will help and assist mediums of psychography to develop their skills, and they will be there for as long as necessary, and then when no longer needed, they will do something else, I guess. Questions, comments? Okay, so we continue next week. You make a final prayer for us, please.
Yes. All spiritual benefactors, all that have contributed here in our studies, from the Spirit book to the Medium's book. With gratitude in our hearts, we thank you for the opportunity of gathering ourselves here again, learning and putting into practice and opening our hearts, our spirit to what is needed, helping both worlds, the spirit world and the physical world, to grow and to improve in our understanding of both worlds. We are grateful for that, and we thank you, dear Lord. We ask as we leave here tonight to be able to continue with our studies throughout the week, and most important, to continue our prayers for all that are going through much difficulties, from the pandemic that continues to Haiti, the country that's going through so much suffering. May our prayers be with them, continuously sending vibrations of love and strength and courage to have faith that our Lord is with them, but we must do our part also. We ask for the blessings of our Spiritist group of New York and all Spiritist centers throughout this planet Earth. And with gratitude in our hearts, may we continue to meet again next week. May God bless our teachers, Jusara, Joel, and Elmo, for their kind blessings that they give us every week continuously. We're grateful, dear Lord, and with that in mind, we ask permission to close our meeting tonight. So be it.